I almost wanted not to do a stream, but practice. Gifted a gab, practice that bass. Wrote some notes down because I was looking at some of my previous streams and I realized that, much better when I wrote notes down. At least I could keep my train of thought. Um, yeah, so I want to start off with the rabbit hole. Anyone who studies this stuff, the Illuminati, Federal Reserve, Jesuits, Freemasons, Zionism, the elites, Hollywood, transhumanism, the fake tiny hats, fake globe earth. I don't know about that, right? I don't subscribe to that one. I just know that whatever's out there, they've clearly put a lot of money into hiding what's really out there. So don't really care. All of it. Anyone that goes really deep finds God, the Bible, Jesus Christ. It's all about Him. It's a war on Him. I don't. This sounds. The ending of this is too evangelical. The language. Um, you know what I mean? Like I tend to dissect everything that I digest. But I thought this meme was pretty good, considering that like this is a spiritual war, because it's you know what I mean? Like it's why I always remind people that 666 also represents mind, body, and soul. The thing that they all like. That's what they want to control. I always thought it was funny that they used it in music because, in a way, that's kind of one of the few mediums that could alter and or affect mind, body, and soul. Kind of weird when you think about it that way. Go up. This because I zoomed in. A Michigan News channel post results to primary election. That's not for another week. So how do you have results for an election that has yet to occur? Really want my hair to look all this puffy? No. Stop. Yeah. Again, we go into like the fact that there are some locations that have decided. I look funny now. No. I can't remember what states they were, but they actually revoked their initial contracts for some of the voting machines. Like this happened, I want to say like a week or two ago. I don't know if I posted it on here or I posted it somewhere else, but I do remember reading that piece of information. Do I want to listen?
Many people now are boasting about the fact I've had this 4 times. I wouldn't.
Okay, yeah. I wouldn't boast about that. It's kind of funny because I remember somebody. This is anecdotal, so take it with a grain of salt, if you will. But I was at the store at the corner shop. Side street? I don't even know. Just there, and someone's wearing a mask, and they're telling me like, da 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 da. He's saying something to the cashier, and he looks at me and he's like, "Why aren't you wearing a mask?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't believe in that. I'm a conspiracy theorist." And he looked at me, man. It got very interesting. But he said, after my fourth shot, I got sick again, and it was even worse. And I thought it was funny that he told me this, and then
Many people now are boasting about the fact I've had this 4 times. I wouldn't like to have COVID 4 times, and I do think there's some evidence to suggest that sequential COVID infections do result in higher risk of long-term, long COVID, or cardiovascular and neurologic complications. You don't want to get this disease once if you can avoid it, and you don't want to get it 4 times for sure.
and it's like, well, the data shows statistically that there's only been one group of people that have gotten it quite a lot of times. Um, we all know about Project Bluebeam. Hopefully, we all know about Project Bluebeam, which is what I consider. I look at it from all angles. So, if aliens are real or if aliens are fake, I made an argument for both sides in my own head, just for peace sakes, I guess. I don't even know. But Project Bluebeam is like a government attempt into kind of like taking an initiative a step ahead, or what the news calls getting ahead of the story, where it essentially like, all right, if any of this happens, diplomatic relationships will happen through these channels. And what was very interesting was, if anybody remembers, this was like, I want to say like right after the 2016 election. It was when one of those band members from Simple Plan was working with John Podesta at like some space program, and they were trying to get declassification and this and that UFOs are real, and that they were showing those, and they've only repeated these same videos, right? These videos of the Navy and all this at the ship. It's the one clip the media uses all the time. It came from that conference, but I can't remember. It was like Star Academy something. John Podesta was on it, and that punk rock dude from Simple Plan was on there too. I can't remember his name. Oh, I was talking about this yesterday too. I loved it. U.S. Intel Committee. I've actually been talking about this for a while now, because I remember. I don't watch television. At most, I used to watch a lot of British entertainment, but that kind of stopped since Doctor Who turned into what it is, and the only thing I watch now is probably like other media that I do not like naming. U.S. Intel Committee warns DNA testing kits could lead to targeted bioweapons. And this goes back to a trend that I saw, just because I saw a lot of people around me talk about it, and just because I enjoyed watching YouTube videos of people who were like Mexican or black or whatever, and they would get this DNA kit, and then they would go get it tested, and they would get it back, and they would record themselves reacting to their results. And my particular favorite ones to watch at the time were people finding out that they were more white than they were whatever melatonin skin identity they were. And that's kind of when I made one of my first points. And I can't remember, did I write it in a journal? Because for sure I didn't make a video on it. But I made a point that people found more connection to their physical appearance. So like if they looked Mexican, they would assume that identity, right? If somebody was born black, they would assume that identity. But when they would look at the DNA work and they would look at the actual biological whatever the fucks, it would, turn out the opposite. And it would trigger them, and it'd be like a moment of crisis, because they're like, but wait, my whole identity is based on my physical appearance. And that's when if you look at how marketing works, and if you look at how most of our ad campaigns work, most of how casting couches work, selection for movies, right? Like your looks go and play a role into all of these facets of our reality, right? So it kind of does affect the way people perceive life. So I created the term identitarians, where you don't really care about the idea or understanding an issue. All you really care about is your identity first. Like whatever identity you've assumed through watching whatever media you were watching. I just saw this as a repeating pattern, right? So then I came down to the conclusion that Antifa and the alt-right, or people who assume that whatever national race is superior, whatever, because it repeats everywhere, right? The Mexicans had it with the cosmic race. Hitler had it because of the Aryan race, but Hitler got it from Californian scientists. So it's kind of like, it was, if you look into it, it was propped up by the Carnegie Institution, Edwin Black, right? Those videos that I showed last stream, he breaks it down in that seminar where he talks about how like Rockefellers, everybody who basically funded any grants, any science research, they essentially came to conclusions first. So, right? And they just looked for the data to prove whatever idea they had. And in this case, they just wanted to play identity politics, because they knew that this was a facet of tactics that they could use against its citizens. And I'll get more into that later. Whatever. Then I wanted to show this building. The original Waldorf, I can't say that, Astoria Hotel in New York, built in 1893, supposedly. Expanded in 1897, torn down in 1929. The Empire State Building stands on its site today. Very nice building. But you get into this whole aspect, which goes more into what I'm about to show next. Take DNA designed to kill them. Probably should not said that out loud. Where I tend to believe that there was a bit of something happened between the end of the 1800th century going into the 1900th century. the turn of the century, whatever. Between those 20 years, back and forward, something occurred because there were key events that kind of alarm me. And John Levy, somebody who talks about Tataria, but the Tataria is kind of like what I call devil in the details. You can call it whatever empire you want. I'm not concerned with that. I'm concerned with what happened. What were the effects that we could look at and be like, all right, this happened, this happened, this happened. What were the circumstances around these events? And one of the ones that he brings up is the great fires and the great earthquakes that happened. I don't know. I tend to get like thinking because at the time Nikola Tesla invented that earthquake machine. Supposedly, it was written about in the New York papers how there was an earthquake in New York. People couldn't actually answer that, so I had largely claimed the conclusion. This is my own conclusion. I'm not saying this is anybody else's. That I assume that there was an attempt at a great reset at the turn of that century. Mainly because of incubator babies. The World Fair and incubator babies. That to me was, I don't know, very confusing. Because it's like, how does, because everything I learned that you can point to in an event in history and kind of like, it's a puzzle, it's one of those pieces. I looked at that and thought to myself, how does this make sense? But when I zoomed out, looked in anywhere else in modern history, if we've seen people who were obsessed or kind of played with the idea of, incubator babies, whatever you want to call that, sort of genetic testing, you tend to find out, right? Like I said, Madison Grant, Henry M. Mayfield, a Supreme Court judge, which I still gonna wait to get on that. You tend to find a lot of evidence to prove that, there's been this very peculiar science that has existed throughout these years, yet it's still largely assumed to the modern public that human DNA testing or any of this creating babies without mothers, we still like to think that that's not real. But like there's proof of it at the World Fair that it's a thing and they allowed you to adopt these kids. And one of the most famous people claims that his grandfather was a test tube, like he was an incubator baby from the World Fair, like Jerry Seinfeld. That to me was like mind blowing. At first I was kind of like, this is really cool. There's pictures, there's this, there's that. Like there was just all these little bits of evidence. But the fact that like, you know what I mean? Why would a comedian of that status make a joke like that? And why would a television studio, why would the people who control the facets of information allow that bit of thing to exist in the ether? I don't know. And, it gets into the revelation of the method and da-da-da-da-da. Either way, we're going to keep moving on. Back to DNA testing. So it's kind of like there's clearly an actor on the stage that has existed for quite some time that understands DNA from a very different perspective. So we'll get into that. And then, we get into Jeffrey Epstein, found injured in NYC cell after possible suicide attempts. I don't even remember if this was... No, this is 2019. But I only really pointed to this because Jeffrey Epstein was somebody who was assumed to actually care about this stuff. They, I think, one of the women that went forward with the lawsuit, she was the one that said that she lived in the Zorro Ranch and she had to. Well, it's in the docket, so I really can't say claimed, whatever, suggested, blah blah blah. She basically said that Epstein was using the Zorro Ranch as where he wanted to make that place a place where he could, do like cloning testing of himself, right? Like trying to create the perfect offspring in a weird way. And what was the name of that? Rusty Shackelford. There's some. I still look. This is just me. I'm claiming this, but there was. What was his name? So Rusty Shackelford, the YouTube channel, when it still existed, It like what? It's been 2 years since it got taken down, but at Rusty Shackleford channel was linking to a bunch of very interesting things where it would lead you to assume certain things were happening with the current events we see currently unfolding. The Rusty Shackleford channel was pointing out some very interesting things, and it was an MTV star. He was one of the dudes that got famous alongside the Jackass brothers. He got into like a car accident, something. But one of the very interesting things that the Rusty Shackleford channel like pointed out was that this dude had the pee-pee size of a button on a fur coat. That's what it was described as, right? And that kind of off put me. And like, but everyone kind of made, at least in that little documentary thing that they were showing, everyone played along with it, like as if it was true, as if everyone had seen the button sized thing on this dude, right? And I don't know. It gets me to think that there's only one person that's publicly known to have a wee wee the oddest size. So I don't know. Right, I'm basically suggesting that this dude is probably one of those kids that was born from Epstein, but I don't know. I'm just claiming that. Because the Rusty Shackleford channel got taken down. That was really interesting. You will eat the bugs. You will never go back to normal. And it's like, the only reason why I hate black pillars is because they'll play videos from like Klaus Schwab as if like what he says actually means anything. I'm like, he's not doing it. That's what some of the citizens don't understand. It's like he's not the one at hand playing all these little games. He subverted the minds of the educated populace to play along with their game. And to me it's kind of like, you need to really stop saying the word like. Essentially it's just, this is why I believe that it's very important to educate everyone, because if we don't, eventually we will end up back in this place where other people get tricked into believing what these psychopaths say and getting them to play along with whatever little game they're playing. Because a lot of the eugenicist movement that I've been researching, a lot of it revolves around environmentalism. A lot of it was under the guise of environmentalism. Where are we listening? Where do we hear that sort of rhetoric from now? Oh, the Bugman. And what does he want to do? He wants to institute what kind of credits? And it all gets into like this weird woo-woo aspect of things. Still show other stuff.
Many scientists are beginning.
How do I'll need to figure out.
Many scientists are beginning to believe that a vaccine against AIDS may be impossible to make and too dangerous to test.
If you take it and then a year goes by and everybody's fine, then you say, okay, that's good. Now let's give it to 500 people. And then a year goes by and everything's fine. You say, well, then now let's give it to thousands of people. And then you find out that it takes 12 years for all hell to break loose. And then what have you done?
Very interesting. And, it's kind of where we're at now with a lot of this stuff, and it's like, I don't think we'll see the ramifications of any of this entirely soon, or at least I hope so. Really hope so. Former Coinbase manager facing charges in first crypto insider trading case. I think they're trying to make an example out of him. And again, a lot of this stuff with the SEC. Have I ever talked on this channel? I don't really think I have. Basically, there's this weird little like internal feud going on between government officials trying to get a grasp of an emerging market, but they haven't created any rules. But they put themselves in a situation because they've never created rules, and in 2018 essentially created rules. They're stuck in a situation where they've sued all these people, but now all these people have asked them, where are the rules? If you want us to follow the rules, let us see the rules. And they're like, well, about those rules, this is a very conflicting situation and blah blah blah. It gets into that whole thing. I don't know what people believe, but there are aspects that believe that this coin that you see on screen with that logo, Ripple, they're claiming that they're part of the White Hats. At least a part of them, or an aspect of them, are part of the White Hats in this war, because I don't know what you want to believe about banking as a whole, but you know what I mean? People want to defend the dollar, and I'm like, bruh, for real? We're at a turning point. We're at a nexus point in history, and you want to go back to the dollar? Like, have you read? Sorry. Flames erupt as protesters continue to rage against the rising cost of food and fuel. And this is just me posting about how we're watching this happen. Just slowly, obviously. You know, King of Pentacles speed. Nancy Pelosi.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
Nor was I driving under the influence of liquor.
Only choice for somebody like me, the time it takes me to get somewhere. I can't sail across the ocean. I have to fly.
Yeah, I don't know.
If you like your doctor.
I like to order hot dogs and play prices for them. Okay, this is what I wanted to get to. This is, I don't know. I kind of blame myself for this because I got my friend involved while all of this was emerging and all of this was kind of popping off. And when I got him involved, it was around the turn of the 2018 to 2019. And when I met up with him, I kind of like red pilled him on like a whole bunch of stuff. Red pilled him on it. And now he sounds like every other person that sounds like this.
What? Do you like what they do?
And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, like, dude, I kind of blame myself because I lost him as a friend. I don't know what happened to him. Like, all I know is that he dropped off the face of the earth. He deleted all of his social medias. He just disappeared. Just like gone. And don't know what happened to him. I don't want to believe that he joined one of these groups, but it's just like, yeah, I kind of did this, didn't I? Or at least I involved him in it. Because at the time I believed aspects of this theory, but again, the more you research, the more you read, the more you figure out like how these people, and by these people I mean groups of people, let's use America as a case study. There is a narrative that I should act a certain way. There is a narrative that because I'm Mexican, I have to speak in a very... Like, I can't even do it right now because I don't want to talk like that. But if I'm around other people that are from my area, I'll talk like that. But, right, there's this notion that I should play into the character that I've been portrayed as. And it happens because of what we watch on television. Actually, that's actually a good point for me to bring up right now because I was watching something. Oh man, this might get me in trouble. This might get me in trouble. Only because the nature of, how do I say this? The discussion, I guess. Let me turn on. I shouldn't do that in the microphone. I'm so sorry. Get that web browser up.
Walter and
That's
Myron.
not lying.
Walter and Myron and Fresh.
Okay, whatever. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but I actually am probably not gonna play this at all, just because, you know, if great content, I like watching it, just because I like discussion on social paradigms and how, like, because we have to, at least I will promote this message. We as a people have to understand the dynamics between us as a species, us as an avatar, us as a thing that operates in this realm, however we want to see it as. And we have to understand that we are subjected to laws of nature and we are susceptible to being lied to. Like, there's much that can happen between the in-between of all this thing, right? At 5 minutes, Where is it? 5 minutes 50? Or basically this lady that's speaking, this lady in blue, she speaks, and they're basically asking about Fresh and Fit. Fresh and Fit is a podcast that talks about quote unquote men's issues. I say quote unquote because they bring it up in the stream actually, where it's entertainment based too. So some of it is meant to be triggering, some of it is meant to be inducing in some way. But what this lady says, this lady in blue, I actually don't have that screen up anymore, do I? Yeah, I do actually. Yay. I was smart. So this lady in blue at the very corner, she brings up an issue how she thinks that promoting these sort of ideas or speaking about these ideas, showing it and putting it out in the ether is a very bad effect on men. And it got me to think like, all right, I'm not going to say she's wrong because I actually do believe that if we promote narratives and narratives open, I don't know how to say this. Like some narratives will destroy people, absolutely destroy people. And that's where I got the idea of she's right. There are aspects of that you can't say certain things, act a certain way on camera because young people could get the wrong idea. But at the same time, well, that's already too late. Reality TV is already here, right? Because I wanted to think, is there well, it came to my mind immediately. Just thought of reality TV, and I was just thinking, well, if that's true, if we speak about these issues and it creates problems, well, reality TV already did that. Reality TV created teen moms as a trend amongst all America. And if we kind of look at what has occurred out of that and the demographic of single mothers and how that's grown as a percentage, again, I'm only coming at this from the angle of I understand that there are special interest groups that are actively working to make our society stagnant in a non-flow state because we're constantly bombarded with marketing schemes. We're constantly bombarded with these loose ideologies of like forever young, and like we're constantly promoted a very particular state of lifestyle that is non-conducive to creating more life. It is a trend, it is an agenda, whatever you want to call it. It's just something that I've noticed, and it's a repeating and a reoccurring pattern. Wow, how did I get lost in that? All right, talking about Fresh and Fit. I go from this to that. Yeah, sometimes I lose myself in thought because, you know what I mean? I'll put the gas to the pedal. North Korea accuses. Okay, yeah, we can. Just pearly things. Yeah, and reality TV. I do want to finish this thought. Reality TV already did that. I remember. Was it reality TV that created the party scene? I don't think so. Well, I don't know. Like, I remember my reality being affected by some of the media that I watched, right? I tried joining band because I saw Drumline. I wanted to learn how to play. I joined the step dance crew because I saw Stomp Yard. Stomp Yard or Step Up or... Can't remember what movie it was, but... Right, like, I found myself susceptible to these trends that were constantly being promoted. I think everybody did, because we're very monkey see, monkey do, and like it's kind of why when you see the toy on TV, you're like, "Hey, mom, dad, I want that toy," etc., etc. So when this young lady said that, like, "Oh, we can't talk about these issues," and because it's bad and this and that, and I'm just like, "Yeah, sure, we can," but that argument's already lost, right? The moment reality TV was introduced to us as a species, it has actually been a detriment to society as a whole because it's warped people's reality. Now, so much so that you see, no offense to Keemstar, but like Drama Alert and stuff like that, to some degree, does incorporate aspects of this reality TV hype culture situation. I don't know. It's like, why does Ariana Grande look like she's Latina when I grew up watching her looking pasty white on Nickelodeon? Let's not talk about Nickelodeon either. Oh man, terrible place. North Korea accuses U.S. North Korea accuses U.S. of biological warfare in Ukraine. It seems like Kim Jong-un is looking out for the homies, if you know what I'm saying. Again, because this goes back to 23andMe. There was a huge trend of people that I watched willingly give their DNA information to these companies. And all of these companies were selling this information to China. And, again, I brought it up last stream. There was a liaison with the Department of Defense that had to go to these foreign countries and be like, yo, diggity dog, I got this government money, dog. I need you to do some research for me, man. Got me, dog? Again, I'm just being funny, but these deals have to be facilitated. Embassies have to communicate with each other. Plane logs have to happen, right? Like, there is a chain of things that you could look at and be like, oh, this lab was established this time because this embassy established da-da-da-da-da, right? There's paperwork. There's always paperwork. We don't like to believe that there's, like, no paperwork, but then why did so many White House Secret Service guards die? Either way. Let's scroll up. A QAnon influencer wants to use an Arizona gubernatorial. Oh man, why am I being like this? Gubernatorial, please, candidate to get his message out, and it seems to be working. Oh my, QAnon is such a bad thing. How dare they accuse of such crazy conspiracy theories? By the way, the DNA conspiracy thing that I'm kind of like privy to, I learned it somewhere. And I learned it from hanging out on the 8kun boards. Shout out if you know the /. I'm just saying. Bricks, vaccines, Baxter the button. No, I'm joking. We're not going to protect us against that thing. We overplayed the medicine. Really now. Remember that video I showed you of Fauci a little earlier ago? We may not see the ramifications of this until 12 years from now. Who knows? The beginning of the creation of Reclaiming the Holy Feminine. I did not watch this yet. Got a backlog. If I could show you my tabs, you would freak. People have anxiety. Somebody told me not that long ago, like, when they look at the amount of tabs I have open at one time, they were like, dude, I get anxiety from looking at all those tabs. I'm like, oh my. I don't know. Makes me feel weird. Speaking unconstitutional banking coup. I'm just saying, when you have the sole power of creating money, I don't know. Comes with some interesting power, don't you think? Joe Biden knew smoking gun voicemail to his son is evidence that America was sold out. Well, I think it's not fair to kind of point the finger to Joe Biden and be like, you're the one that sold this out to China. You were the one solely to blame. And that doesn't work that way. Because when I think about it, I distinctly remember back when I was in like 9th grade living in Texas, like, look, I was a very dweeby kid. I was very docile. I look back at it now and I'm not surprised I got bullied. But I just remember them looking at me and being like, oh, it's because your people came over here and took our jobs. But when I grew up, I learned that, like, well, we didn't get the jobs. You didn't get the jobs. Where did the jobs go? They all went to China. But how did Joe Biden have a soul? How did he play a role in that? When these insults that were being tossed around were back in, like, what, 2002 to 2007, 2008, give or take? And by the way, I was questioning 9/11. Look, 4chan did very interesting things to me at a very early age. So, how dare you? My family serving, da-da-da. Like, I don't really blame any of that that happened because I did open my mouth. Either way. So I think about it and I'm like, well, Joe Biden definitely wasn't president during that time that those deals were facilitated between America and China, where Chinese companies came over to America to dismantle all of this hardware and then take it over to their country in order to assemble it over there. And then, I don't know. the propping up of China does not lie in this dude's hands. No. Let's see what else. House Intelligence Committee speaks about new DNA bioweapons. You can take someone's DNA, design a weapon that can kill them. House Intelligence Committee, blah, 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 blah. Issue sites like 23andMe, because it could be used to program new bioweapons to target them. Now, I know, I kind of reposted this article multiple times, but I thought it was so coincidental because I was like, oh, dude, I was just talking about this. I've been talking about this for a while now, but still. Very excited. And some people, I remember saying like, oh, I use the private company and like they don't sell my data, so it's impossible for my data to get out there, da 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 da. And I remember literally sharing them an article of that same company going bankrupt and then getting bought out by a company that does sell information. So it's kind of like they thought about it all, man. They thought about it all. Because remember, they have think tanks. They have people that they could give 6 figures to absolutely think about all scenarios. Of course, they're going to know how to do all this. I'm not surprised. I just noticed how much to the side Vimy is. I'm gonna move him. Oh yeah, that character. His name is Vimy. I've been practicing. The only reason why I can practice a British voice is because I've been trying to give him some gritty action, if you know what I mean. But not like that. I'm embarrassed now. I'm not shy. No, I'm joking. What the fuck? Invade Niagara Falls. Oh yeah. More people are joining. You know, awakening. They're activating, man. My sleeper cell, like QAnon is in the background, like my sleeper cell soldiers are waking up slowly. Like, dude, that's totally how it works. Trudeau moves forward with plan to reduce fertilizer use. You will eat the bugs. And I always remember, like, the only reason why these decisions are happening and progressing forward is because the people that are the book Leviathan, it's like a loose metaphor for if you decide to go against the community, this like invisible creature will go after you. Oh, think of Agent Smith from The Matrix, where the moment you go against whatever pre-established programming there was, these people will just turn on you like drones and be like, you are wrong, you must conform, and like they'll just do all that woo-woo stuff. So it's kind of like, and the only reason they're like that is because they consider themselves educated. They consider themselves people with sense. It's like Descartes. Everybody believes themselves with enough sense that they have enough of it. Loosely paraphrasing. It was like from his essays. I don't know where that book is. Let's go, man. Former AG Bill Barr says Mexican drug cartels should be wiped off the face of the earth. All right, this reminds me of a very interesting story from some general who was like at the Pentagon, and like he was the one that heard that, oh, we're gonna invade Libya and we're gonna invade Egypt, and then oh no, the problem's much worse. It's like, it's a famous video that most people know about. Well, there was a similar event that happened when Trump was in office, and it was kind of like Bill Barr's team essentially saying the same sort of rhetoric that we saw with the Middle East, but it being used against, you know, traffickers all over Mexico, da-da-da-da-da. Interesting stuff. Oh, is Q a PSYOP? Yes, it is. It has all the markings of it, but it's kind of like, what was the purpose of it? If you know that you can distinguish a marker or an event or something as something, what is the definition of PSYOP? What is the definition? How do you explain it? What was the purpose of it? If it was an operation of intelligence, well, there's rules that America has that doesn't allow that. And kind of like a weird way to, I don't know, if you read the rules, it's very interesting because essentially you can't claim, I don't know. It all depends on what you know about Seth Rich, the emails, and how all of this bullshit kicked off. Either way, people, where is it? People who fall for every right-left paradigm psyop on television. People who understand central banking and Agenda 2030. Now that I think about it, oh no. It just dawned on me. Is this reversed? Oh no, it's not. Gubernatorial. Oh, the story of vitamin B17. You know, funny, I was at Walmart and I saw a vial of this just in front of me and I was like, should I buy this? I feel like I should buy this. One of the few times. Okay. I finally got to it. So I think this was yesterday, the 23rd, right? Yeah. You know, I rewatched that Edwin Black video because it's been a while since I watched it. And I remembered about Oliver Wendell Holmes, right? That Oliver Wendell Holmes was a Supreme Court judge. And all I'm going to say is, I'm just going to read this, where it says, actually, is there a way for me to pop that up? Hey, yo, Tony, pop it up on the screen. There you go. Yep. 3 generations of imbeciles is enough, declared Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes in the 1927 Supreme Court case Buck versus Bell that ensured involuntary sterilization of the feeble-minded, the long-sought goal of eugenicists, as the law of the land. And kind of the reason why I just bring it up is because this was literally quoted in the Nuremberg trials. At least whatever was submitted to the California docket, they submitted it in the California docket because they thought that they would have a chance to win the case in the state that literally invented eugenicists. Beautiful. Like this irony, this level of irony, you just cannot make up. It's like wonderful. And what's funny is if you look into the people that were targeted, if I think about all of my friends that worship like Hitler, Madison Grant, and all these people, they are literally on the chopping block. Every single person that I know, that I've ever met, that I just ever talked to, would somehow fit under the category of being feeble-minded and unnecessary. And this is all under the guise of environmentalism. This is all on the docket in California. And I'm just here just repeating what I've learned. But here's the funny thing, right? This is something I actually wrote down because I found it very important, because I learned all this information from a researcher who just so happens to be drumroll, Jewish. But here's the thing. Just because I said that now, there are a very small group of people that exist on the internet that will use that identity talking point. You're white. That means I can discredit you now. What does that sound like? Oh, you're a tiny hat. I can discredit you now. It's like, do you not see that you're the same thing? Like, you're a mirror representation of each other, but you pointed at the people that can defuse you. You're pointing it at the people that have enough information to tell you that, hey, something's fucky here, and we need to figure out what's going on, but instead, we just feed into the corporatist war, and we murder you. And we just allow all of, like, the FBI to create its psyops, which, you know, I bring up those people with the flags in front of Florida, and it's just like, this is all to create a false paradigm. And it's why I believe 4chan is a controlled playground, because it's the only place this sort of rhetoric can exist. 8kun, on the other hand, don't ever go there. I would actively suggest normal people to stay away from 8kun, because just read what the media says about it. If you actually go on it, I don't think you could survive any of the insults, any of the I don't know how to describe it. Basically, it's just bad. It's like a war zone. Like, the things you will see, the rhetoric that you will expose yourself to, like, it doesn't play out well. And you know, I always ask myself the question, then why do these people post all of this garbage on this website if this is supposedly all a lie? Who would spend so much time posting this long on a website for 24 hours a day? Ask these questions. Ask these questions. At least I do. And, you know, you get into like the Seven Dwarfs program. I think it was called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It was a program that the CIA had where they were just trying to create like personalities of the seven dwarfs and to see how far that they could create AI experiences for these things. And some people assume that aspects of this program was then used to study humans. And you can kind of assume that because Microsoft launched that AI that you could talk to, all to kind of gauge. It's like Cambridge Analytica again. If you understand what people like, you can kind of create programs and algorithms that will promote a certain kind of language towards individuals in order to promote ideas and spin them out of cycles and So I wrote, right, because I learned this from Edwin Black, who's a Jew, all of these people who could use this truth to breaking the spell will reject it because, no, they're tiny heads. I can't trust them. They're lying to me. I'm like, why would they lie to you? Like, these IBM machines actually existed over there. These letters exist in the Smithsonian. Like, what are you denying? The same people that you worship, the people that you worship were all funded and used by American corporations who did not have the public's, like Oliver Wendell. Like, if you read the docket, he wanted to remove 10% of America back in 1920. And if you remember what I said about incubator babies and the World Fair and very interesting particular events of the great earthquakes, fires that destroyed entire blocks of cities, what happened to all those people? Like, I don't know. I'm just a guy who's looking at trends. That's all I'm gonna say. In a weird way, all the Edwin Black stuff, when they allowed him to write these books, it was right at the turn of 2001 to 2007. And if we all know what happened during those 7 years, those are very crucial into the, I would say the spell of Iraq and the Middle East kind of lasted for 7 years. Because if you look at the movies that we got out of that war-torn era, they kind of all depict, I would say, anywhere from 2001 to 2007. Because up until 2009, that's when Obama really started, let's just say he started getting really trigger happy. And at that point, it wasn't okay to talk about the war at that point. But you know. Oliver Wendell Holmes, eugenics is the law of the land, And it's so funny because Edwin Black says a catchphrase. This was a catchphrase the Nazis had amongst each other. National Socialism is nothing but biology in action. National Socialism is nothing but biology in action. And when you look at this, it's like there were only one group of people that had the capacity to hire think tanks. The Carnegie Institution, the Rockefeller Foundation, the people that basically created our education system were the only people that had access, by the way, willing, participating access, right? They were like, hire me. I have research. I could do your research. All you have to do is offer money to any of these dweebs and they'll do the research for you. Because I do wonder how somebody like Fauci could have his position for so long. If we go back to Dr. Malone, who talked about his part in the creation of this new medicine technology, he even talks about how the person that he was working under in the Salk Institute, not a very good man either. So it's kind of like you see these repeating patterns of like, I trust the science when all these guys are leading it. Who can't? I'm joking, obviously. I'm so sorry. Currently a Fed op taking place outside the convention center in Tampa, Florida. All the flags are still creased, implying that they just purchased them. None of their stories line up, and they continue to contradict themselves when questioned. It's all, people like to say our reality is a simulation. I'm just like, nah, I just think that the people in power have created the simulation in this reality, right? They've gaslit people, they've educated people, they've created definitions and have defined our world as such, right? Like, can't contradict any pre-established notion of what our reality is. So, you know, it goes back to the ancient Smith. What did you say? Oh no, we'll have you know that Iraq had WMDs. Can't even say it with a straight face. I like this guy. This guy was nice. Do I open it? Do I really want to open it? Yeah, I do actually.
This ladder stayed in the house yesterday. This ladder stayed outside. Right off the bat, this ladder looks better than this ladder. That's how we view people. We don't take into consideration that this poor bastard stayed outside all night in the cold and the rain and all the other shit. And sometimes all you need in life is a little bit of help. So y'all don't be too quick to judge. We all go through shit. Be there for somebody sometimes. They may need you, and by God, you may need them. This ladder stayed in the house yesterday. This ladder stayed outside. Right off the bat, this ladder looks better than this ladder. That's how we view people. We don't take into consideration that this poor bastard stayed outside all night in the cold and the rain and all the other shit. And sometimes all you need in life is a little bit of help. So y'all don't be too quick to judge. We all go through shit. Be there for somebody sometimes. They may need you, and by God, you may need them. This ladder stayed in the house.
I don't know, call me crazy.
I'm an idiot. I just left this running with no sound at all. F in the chat. F's in the chat, boys. So I messed that up hella hard. How long was that? Oh no. Oh no, now I'm gonna have to wait till all this loads and then figure out where to snip it. What was I saying? Very bad timing. Ain't that right? Hi Pox, how's it going, Pox? I know, F's in the chat. F's in the chat. I didn't even know you were here, Pox. And you're kind of someone that this is directed towards, because I don't know, man, like I tried telling people like, hey, this is a fucking psyop. Like, you guys are getting set up by the FBI. Like 3 minutes. Okay, so not that bad. I don't know. I just believe that this is all like a softball for the court system. Because if you look inside the docket, right, because the FBI doesn't want to do any hard work. They just want to persecute people the same way they've done it over and over and over again, right? That's why all the RICO cases are written the same. What was it? The American Nazi Party? Like, if you look at the docket, everything that's usually repeated on 4chan is the same shit that was repeated inside of this court document. So it's kind of like, if this goes to a judge, dude, there's no arguing it. It's just gavel, federal prison, 10 to 15 years. For what? Saying some, I don't know. I get angry at it because it's just like, why? All to defend some like shill. Yes, I tend to believe that Hilario himself was a shill. Hilario being Hitler. Because it's like, dude, how do you have Mussolini, Stalin, and Hitler all live in the same area? They all lived within miles of one another. And they all went to seminary. Oh, seminary schools are kind of like early renditions of like public education. And they were largely handled by like Jesuits. And the only people that ever went there were families of people who were affluent or had families of affluence. So it kind of goes into this thing where, like, I really do believe. So there was this interesting, who was it? I don't know. It was some CIA guy who was talking about James Alefantes and how, like, he went to the White House a couple times. And he talked about that area where that pizza parlor was. And he talked about how the lawyer that defended him and represented him was on the same block. But then he started naming other people that had businesses on that same block. And he's just like, look, these are like dynasties. These are people of affluence. These are people who live and know one another and are actively in communication with one another. And he basically described the neighborhood that area is in as like a bourgeoisie, like the oligarchs live like the only people that live there are people who really have like influence over American politics. At least that's what he insinuated it as. And it just gets me to think that, like, you know, how does Bill Gates marry the daughter of one of the Nazi scientists that comes over to America? Like, what is the probability of that? What is the probability that just some normal German scientist hangs out with both Bill's dad and Bill's mom, which both, by the way, come from bank dynasties? So it's almost like all these fools knew each other from like the whole time. I don't know. I get caught up in that just because it's like, piece it together, man. Piece it together. This is a war. Wake up. Al Gore, climate change, climate deniers. Ooh. I'm just saying, right? This all comes down to you're repeating the rhetoric that comes from all of this early science. And I'm just like, and it's all under the guise of climate change. And it's like, if I do not want to speak this into the ether because that's fucked up. So I'm saying this as just to verbalize this. But I'm kind of curious now. What would it look like for them to institute carbon credits? Because they would attach values to actions and things that occur in real life that, you know, like, oh, having a baby occurs this many tax credits. Oh, what's that? You don't have that many tax credits? Yoink. Thanks for the baby. I'm just like, because I could see people making those arguments of you can't do this, you can't do that because it expends this many carbon credit taxes, and it essentially allows for this. It's not a soft form of a social credit score. It's a very hard form of a social credit score. Yet, I was, if anybody has some sense, you'd realize that it isn't us who expends all this toxic shit into the world. But if you say this piece of information to any of the people who really believe in this, they'll be like, "Oh, you're just a hater of other races," and it's just like. They've designed the paradigm and the vocabulary each people will use. So when you go after one another, you'll always end up nowhere. Because both of you have been taught the wrong thing. So you'll always point towards the wrong thing. I think it's hilarious. It's like, we're not the people expending all this trash. It's the Chinese. And the other people reply, "No, you're just racist." Bruh, we've been put in black and white squares, man. We are playing into Masonic game. Not all life is black-white, you know? And, it kind of gets more interesting when you look into, movements. The movements of people, the movements of all this. Because it's kind of like, right, the way I see it, all of this medicine stuff that was created in 2019 to 2020 was all for the final solution. This is their final solution. They took your DNA information and they implemented it into the new technology. And you're the target. You gave them your information. Like, identitarians willingly, haha, I need to figure out what kind of special boy I am. Like, it's not that I say that I saw this coming, but I was one of the few people to be like, hey, maybe it's kind of a bad idea to give all that DNA information. All it takes is, and Q's like, yeah, DNA, bioweapons, targeted individuals. And I remember being like, oh, dude, here we go again with the QAnon stuff. He's so stupid. And look at where we are now. Look at where we are now. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, this is what vanity got us. This is what literally giving a fuck about what our identity is got us. A targeted bioweapon because, people be getting out of hand. They're waking up. We need to do something about this. And, it gets back into why I brought up that old building. Kind of Tataria, whatever. If Tataria or not, there was a previous civilization. There was a previous group of people that lived life very differently. And we can assume this because of the way the architecture is laid out. I don't know. I don't know what people want to believe or not, but it's just me. And I just realized that I've been going on for an hour now. Thanks for watching, and I need to go to bed. I go to bed at 7:30.